Good afternoon, everyone. Shady ships the next domino to fall in the supply chain. Oh, our ships are too dirty. Can't have them on the oceans anymore. Have to be zero emission. That's an impossibility. Flagging the top 15 retailers sending goods across the ocean. South Africa, 19 new all-time cold records smashed. Full supply chain and full agricultural stoppage and disruption. Looking at the countries South Africa exports to, these are the next to experience civil unrest due to food price increases. And while Southern Africa turns into an ice box, the Soros-funded NGOs are asking us to return to Phoenician gallery ships to transit goods across our ocean. Inflation in the U.S. will climb between 6 and 9% by year's end, said Steve Hanke, who served on Ronald Reagan's Council of Economic Advisors. Said the rapid growth in money supply, work fueling asset prices. But the negative side to this, the rise in inflation in 2021 has been caused 100% by growth of the money supply. When inflation spikes, commodities like gold, silver, lumber, real estate have historically surged. Learn how simple it is to add physical gold and silver to your portfolio ahead of the rise in inflation and predicted price rises. Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA. Call 1-800-356-4470 and get a free investor guide today. And the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 till present. Click the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. Now, for the last 150 years, ocean voyages were barely discussed in the pollution debate. I understand that ports are high pollution areas. Ships have been burning bunker fuel for how many decades now, since World War II and even prior. Yet suddenly in 2021, along with the Great Reset, so many NGOs and so many organizations are calling for ships to stop burning anything, to go to zero emissions, which means all shipping stops across the planet. So Stand.Earth put out this expose, which I linked in the description box below. Shady ships. What they're doing is calling out giant retail polluters that are sending fossil fuel ocean shipping across our oceans to deliver your trinkets of junk made in China. Yet they're blaming you for all the pollution, which makes no sense because I don't own any of these ocean-going vessels. I don't own any factories. Yet I'm blamed for having a cow on my property. Anyway, ocean import CO2 emissions, they've called out the top 15 polluters ranked in order. Let's run them down. Walmart, obviously, and then Ashley Furniture, Target. But here's the most interesting ones they're calling on also. Ceasing of ocean voyages for our food. Dole, Chiquita. But then we'll find Home Depot in the number 5 spot. IKEA, Amazon, Samsung, Nike, LG, Red Bull, the Family Dollar store, see, that's food as well. Williams-Sonoma, and then Lowe's. Now, a lot of these also provide tools and different implements so you could grow your own food. And when I look into this report here, these environmental groups taking aim at retail giants, ocean freight polluters, they want every ship to go to zero emissions by 2040, which is an impossibility. It truly is. If you're going to run generators to have refrigeration, that's still not a zero emission. Because I look at it and I say, all right, even if you go to solar panels to run the refrigeration, then the base input of mining the metals and sending them to a factory to smelt and then turn that into a fabrication plant and then move it on into coils and everything else and gases needed for refrigeration, That's not anywhere remotely close to zero emissions. So are they talking prior to, onto the ship, or on the ship itself? And taking a step into the super absurd, some of these shipping companies are already saying, you know what, we're going to convert over to LNG. We understand bunker fuels are dirty, coal's dirty, mixture of oil and coal dirty. We're just going to go ahead and step right up to LNG. Super clean. The emissions out of the stack is pretty much water vapor. But these NGOs are saying, no. False solution. You're not even allowed to use LNG. We need strict environmental regulations. So I'm going to say, all right, these definitely narrative-funded NGOs want us to go back to Phoenician ships. They want us to go back to gallery ships. But I would ask, with this many hands rowing beneath, how much extra food will that require? And how much refrigeration will that require to have all the extra food? But you can't, because you can have zero emissions. And then if you have solar panels, again, we go back into who mined it, who smelt it. So there's no zero emissions. So you couldn't even have human-powered ships. Plus, that'd be too much methane. And how would they want us to transact? Because they say cryptocurrency, you can't do that because you're using too much electricity. Okay, I guess we'll go back to gold and silver coinage. Since we have the Phoenician ships on both, might as well go back to sound money. If we're going to be swimming across the ocean on a duck's back. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. The twine was not zero emission in the factory. So we can't even use the twine to tie ourselves to ducks' backs to get across the ocean to bring goods to another country using gold and silver, which might be too heavy for the duck and it'll sink. And looking down in South Africa, wheat prices reach record high levels, which may have been part of the unrest down there because people's food prices doubled. And you saw what happened in South Africa. So what do you think is going to happen to the rest of the planet when the food prices double? So let's stay in South Africa. Look at the whole southern hemisphere here. Blue is a great color for this map because everywhere you see in the southern hemisphere is experiencing record cold. From Australia to New Zealand to South Africa to Mozambique, Brazil, Argentina, and so many crops being wiped out. This is actually a good representation of what the southern hemisphere is right now, an ice box. But I'm going to stay right in South Africa because I want to trace down the food and who gets the most food from South Africa that's not going to get it anymore. So looking at some of the coldest temperatures ever recorded in South Africa, first there were 4 of them. And this was back on the 22nd of July. And you're like, wow, all-time coldest ever recorded. And most of these are going back 60 plus years, back to the British era, late 1800s. And suddenly, a day after that, 19 new all-time coldest ever temperature records being set back to the 1880s all occur in the same night. So I'm looking at this going, all right, this is definitely going to damage some of the crops that were still in the fields, going to be harvested, delayed by all these weeks of should have been harvest season, but turned into chaos season. So the planting with the colder ground coming into the spring in the southern hemisphere, which is our winter in the northern hemisphere, definitely going to be delayed. Supply chains are completely broken down. Roads, nothing. Warehouses disrupted. Nothing is moving out of South Africa. Nothing. Agriculture is at a standstill. It's going to take years, plural, for any ag to get back into normal flow again. If there's another chaos situation, everything's going to go back to zero and reset once more. Hyperinflation on the rand, doubling food prices, which is looped into the hyperinflation. And then we got the civil unrest. So when you're looking at the exports by country, Zimbabwe is the #1 importer of South African foods. Ag. We'll just call it agriculture exports instead of breaking it down to sorghum and barley and corn and vegetables, etc. Zimbabwe's already a basket case anyway, no pun intended, for mismanagement of a nation and hyperinflation. But when we look down, Zambia's next, Swaziland, which is inside South Africa along with Lesotho. And you can't say the next breath unless talking about hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, which is about to sweep worldwide. Hyperinflation 3.0, 4.0, whatever point oh it is. How many nations have we seen hyperinflation? This time it's global. This time it is going to be the United States. So get ready, because the world's here in 2021. Everything's doubling right now. Food prices for sure doubling by the end of the year. But wait, that's what set off all the chaos in South Africa. Was in the entire mix, food prices, because humans are humans. They're going to react to the same stimulus, pretty much the same. Doubling, tripling food prices, government's going to have a problem. So back to South African regional trade on the grains, specifically grains this time. Barley, sorghum, rice, yellow corn, white corn are going out to these nations, Botswana, Namibia, and Mozambique. So you can take these grain exports down to zero to these nations. Where will they buy from? And coming onto the open market, oh, and then you need a ship to deliver it to the ports. Oh, gee. Well, we can't have any ships running on the ocean because they need to go to zero emissions, remember? The Shady ships. So this Shady ships does more damage for African imports than any other place on the planet. And these NGOs think they're helping the world by stating and requiring and forcing companies to do such things. They're just hurting the continent of Africa. Taking a look at South African full agricultural products. This includes veg, finished product, and grains as well. So some nations since 2014 to 2019-20 definitely increased the amount that they were importing. Mozambique's a good one. It more than doubled. Then we got Kenya, Angola, which shrunk a little bit. Zambia, definitely increasing there. Zimbabwe, down a sliver. Malawi and Mauritius, both up. So again, I would challenge you to trace the food import chains from these different countries. And the amount of corn or barley or sorghum or finished product or veg coming out of South Africa won't be there. So where will they buy the additional materials they need to keep their populations fed? Because South Africa's gone to zero, meaning the rest of these countries need to go on the world market looking for. And since it's across the border or very close, things could be delivered by rail from South Africa. Now, if you're ordering corn from the United States or the EU to get down to, say, Mozambique or Malawi, you're going by ship, which is going to raise the price. And you see this conundrum that the world suddenly finds itself in. Super important time for you to get ready for your food stockpiling. Prepping it out. Long-term food storage is where you need to focus, because there's going to be good years where you can still eat, supplement what you have in stored foods versus relying on all of your storable foods. That's why you want to have it stable shelf life for 20 years. Just like in these Mylar bags here with my Patriot supply and Adapt 2030, the 2-week or the 4-week emergency food supply. And my Patriot supply is now offering 1 month, 6 month, and 1 year food supply packages. So take a look at that. The link's in the description box below, along with all the links from tonight's stories so you can chase down, do your own research. Because if you have any ideas about where these other nations in Africa are going to get their food, I would really like to hear that so I could do a follow-up video to this and sort of go down the chain of suppliers into these other nations. Now, I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll see you next time.